Okay, I think we can just jump into it. Hey, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Moiz Rehan. I live in New York City. I'm in New York City right now. I'm from Pakistan originally. I am a graduate from Williams College, and I also had the pleasure of working with AMP Global Youth last year on their summer program, which is the Global Scholar Program. And I was a resident coordinator for them, helping them implement their Global Scholar Program in Washington, D.C. And this year, we've been in touch since then. I love working with them. They're an incredible organization. They're really social justice forward, and their programming is, I think, some of the most cutting edge when it comes to youth programming. So when they asked me to do an interview with someone from Pakistan about youth responses to coronavirus, one of the first few people that I thought of was Zanera, who I will let introduce herself, but she's an incredible person, and I'm really grateful that she's agreed to talk to us and share her experience so far.
Thank you so much, Moiz. You're always so gracious with your words. Hi, everybody. My name is Zanera. I am from Lahore. I'm currently in Lahore, Pakistan, and I went to school in the U.S., graduated in May. I studied government and gender, and that's what I work on now. And currently I'm working on a fundraiser for COVID-19 relief in Pakistan, and trying to make sure that people who are at a loss of income or hungry or have other needs, specifically because of the lockdown currently in Pakistan, and also because of just coronavirus and the spread. So we're trying to make sure we can do a little bit for them.
That's amazing. Just to sort of back it up, when did you first realize that there was a need for what you're doing, and how did you come about that?
So I think it started pretty early on. So I think everybody knew that, the virus was going to so many countries, so many developed countries, and they were struggling with an effective response to control it and also to prevent it. And so we were sort of, getting ready for it mentally, I suppose, but I guess we didn't really know or want to think that once it would come to Pakistan, it would come in such volume. And I think it was wishful thinking, but also kind of irresponsible, not only mostly on the government's part, to not, have started preparations before, because we did have so much time for it. So as soon as kind of the panic increased with the first few cases in Pakistan, it was still, it's spring season. We only get a few months of good weather in Pakistan, so everybody's trying to fit in everything. So there was so much happening. Just a week ago, before the lockdown, we were at the Women's March, Aurat March, and we were a bit concerned about it, but it wasn't like this. It hadn't reached that sort of pandemic stage for us mentally. So pretty quickly, Pakistan's economy relies on daily wage workers, which basically means that they get money on a daily basis, which they use to feed their families and themselves. And there are no fridges filled with food. There are no fridges, and that's kind of how they earn their money. So pretty quickly, the bigger organizations started collecting money, and so we, on an individual, personal level, I was scouting people who were collecting money and were doing good work, but also had sort of the right information that was needed to, do relief response in sort of COVID-19 environment, because you also kind of expose yourself, but also the people that you're trying to help if you're not doing it properly. So I was kind of working on that for a week, and then I realized that because I studied in the U.S., I do have a little bit of a network there, and some of my friends are Pakistani Americans or Pakistanis that are abroad, sort of like yourself, who wanted to kind of give back and understood the unique situation of Pakistan when it came to sort of the economic factors associated with COVID-19, because, developed countries, they're having it bad, right? So it's just unimaginable what we're seeing in Pakistan or what we're going to see, because let's be honest, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Hopefully, I hope it does get better, and it will, but it's going to take time, and we have to make sure we're kind of preparing ourselves and other people in that sort of period. So that's kind of how it started, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. And so now, once that you have this idea that, okay, there's an economic need, like you really understood well that there are people who are daily wage workers and they will not have access to their income. And then you also realize that you have this network in the US. How did you go about mobilizing this network? And then what were sort of some of the first steps you took to sort of get the word out?
Sure. So I think it started on a very small level. I thought maybe like some of my friends would want to chip in. And honestly, I feel like sending money in the US is so much easier than it is in Pakistan. You can just Venmo somebody, just like put, you have that system, you just put in a number, it's 2 buttons, it's a lot easier. And I in general think that when you want to give money, I think everybody has great intentions. We all want to do good in the world, but we also want it to be a little bit easier for us. And the easier it is, the more likely we are to do it. And I thought, like maybe some people can Venmo me like $2, $5, and it would add up, because, the dollar, like $1 in Pakistani rupees is 167 right now, which is insane. Like $15 can feed a family for 2 weeks, a family of 4, with like basic necessities. So like that kind of like, I understood very quickly that kind of impact would mean a lot. So most of our donations have been through the US, and I'll speak a little bit about who these people are who are giving money to me, essentially. But I wanted to focus a little bit on kind of getting that money in. I thought because I had access to both sort of like banking systems, I could be that medium that helped get the money to the people who needed it the most, and the people who did want to give it to them. So that's how I started. I started with my sort of college sort of groups that I was involved in, with like the Pakistani Students Association, a few others. Just kind of sent a message to my friends, hey, like I'm collecting money, and these are some of the organizations on my radar that I've been following and helping. So if you want, I can kind of send money to them on your behalf. And I thought, maybe the most we could do was like maybe get $100, which is also a lot. Again, like that's $16,000. That's like food for 6 families. So and then I woke up the next morning and I had like so many sort of Venmo notifications, and it really like sort of gave me hope. It made me hopeful. And so then I thought maybe, we could go a step further. So then I made a few posts, messages, and kind of like talked about the organizations that I was helping, and kind of comforted them that like these are reliable sources, because of somebody who is abroad or someone who is, and because it's happening so quickly, right? Like COVID-19 response happened so fast. Like even me, like one day I was just kind of sitting in my room. I mean, I was still sitting in my room when I was collecting all the donations, because you can't go anywhere, but it was still like it happened really fast. So most of the people who are doing the work are like grassroots people. They're not big organizations. They're very grassroots oriented. They know exactly who needs what, and are able to kind of, again, become that bridge between us and the people who are sort of unprivileged or seriously disenfranchised because of COVID-19. So it kind of just became this chain, and I'm just like a very small piece of it, but a piece that was able to get that financial resource in. So we were really happy to do that. So far, we've collected like 10 lakh like Pakistani rupees, which is about $6,000-ish, I want to say, and most of it is like like US money through Venmo, funnily enough, and it's small dollar donations. So it just took it just took like multiple messages and kind of like keeping people in touch with what's happening. So I would just like send updates within the groups or people who had donated that, hey, this is what's happening, or like this person in Balochistan has now been added to the roster. So people who say like donated for one organization in the initial like 5 organization list, when they heard about like this pressing need, wanted to send more money. So we also had small donations, but multiple donations from sort of the same people. And I guess because it was like, it's almost, I would say like first-hand or like first degree or second degree people, it I think also helps to kind of, it helps to know that they know somebody who's involved in this. A lot of people would ask me, like, do you know who these people are? And I would say, yes, I know like X person from their organization. So I think virtually and very quickly we were able to use all these sort of like random connects that I could see in my head and build like a network of trust and community, which has been really incredible for me to see as well.
That's incredible.
I feel like I'm just talking a lot.
I mean, that's what an interview is. So and I wish, I mean, that like, I don't want to make it like a formal interview, but yeah, I'm so glad that you're able to share with us. Just really, I feel like it's such a cool thing. And I think what's really interesting is that I've been seeing this a lot on my timeline. Like a lot of people I know in Pakistan are doing, like ration drives and they're collecting money. But I think what's the coolest about what you've done is that you've really figured out a way to like how to build that connection between Pakistani Americans and Pakistanis and other people in the US or other places who might be, hi Vanessa, who might be interested in helping out. And I mean, I think like, like $6,000, like 10 lakh rupees, that's an incredible amount of money to raise just through Venmo and, like small donations.
Right.
So I think that's really just incredible. So now what are you doing with that money, I guess, would be really interesting for us to hear. Like, how are you making sure that...
So...
Yeah, go ahead.
How am I making sure that like it's used
where it's
productively? Yeah. So like I said initially, I started out with a list of say 4 or 5 organizations who I kind of saw were using the right. I think what was really important for me to kind of vet my own list was that are they using the right kind of precautions when it comes to disbursement. So all of them mostly are doing ration drives, which basically means they're providing food to all these families because that is like obviously the most urgent need that they they're hungry. And a lot of activists have pointed this out, right? Like Pakistan does have high rates of poverty, does have high rates of like statelessness in sort of different meanings of the word. So this is not new to us, but it's been magnified to such an extent that people who were, previously were able to at least feed themselves once a day are not able to do that because they can't go out of the house. The homeless community, they don't have anywhere to cook the food, right? Like they rely on sort of these shelter places or like markets in general or people on the street to buy them a meal for a day. And I think that's pretty global and universal right now. Like the homeless piece of the puzzle is being really, really sort of hard to solve for everybody across the globe, especially so in Pakistan because that we're very slow to have those conversations already. So there are like around 5 or 6 organizations that I kind of just like random sort of equally send money to. Sometimes like I offer people, they can specifically say, oh, can you send my money to this cause because it speaks like more to me. So say like the Aurat March initiative, they're helping the communities they mobilize as part of their like feminist grassroots work, but they're also providing protective gear to doctors and medical staff because they know that is the need of the hour. So a lot of people were like, this is, like I want our medical staff or our essential staff to have protective gear. So can you please make sure my money goes there? And then I would just send it immediately to that sort of initiative and then share like a receipt with them that your money has been sent. And sometimes people just send it to me and I kind of just see where it's most needed or like I do have connections with the people that I'm sending money to. So I just text them and ask them what the need of the hour is. And if you want to we need to raise more money for them, we kind of post more about them. So it's kind of just been that. But then sort of like when I was, we're sending money to Balochistan, we're sending money to rural Punjab, we're sending money to smaller cities in Punjab like Leia, we're helping sort of low-income communities within Lahore, and we're sending money to Peshawar, we're sending money to Quetta. So we try to kind of get a sort of diverse range of initiatives that needed help, and like I said, they're all kind of embedded in the communities. All the people who kind of started it or are involved are like very attached to their communities. It's not like somebody from like a big NGO or like an international organization doesn't know what's happening, who doesn't know how to solve their problems or what to give to them, comes in and does the work. So that was really important for me. So as we were doing this work, we realized that we weren't seeing a lot of work done for the transgender community in Pakistan, who are also very marginalized and disenfranchised. And which is ironic because we have one of the most progressive laws on transgender rights. Pakistan is weirdly ironic when it comes to that. But the reality on the ground is that they are sort of disenfranchised, and we realize that they, have higher rates of contracting diseases. We know that they're at a higher risk of being immunocompromised. So just thinking about all of those things, it really, made me think that this is something that I want to focus energies on. So I started asking around if people were doing work on that, and one of my friends and somebody who is very like a transgender woman she's also a trans activist. I messaged her and she said, yeah, I've been also meaning to do something. Why don't we just do it together? And I was like, yeah, why not? And it just kind of came together. There's no like team where it's just me and a lot of amazing people who help in the littlest ways. Like somebody will make, like my brother like makes all the posts for me, which is really nice of him. And then Hursan, her name, that's what her name is. She kind of is had all the community contacts and became sort of our liaison. And we kind of did the logistics part of the puzzle, and she was able to identify who needed the money. So we ended up helping. It was a small drive, but we ended up helping 35 sort of people from the transgender community, and most of them are also daily wage workers, but the kind that probably wouldn't be involved in sort of the government schemes that we're seeing now, right? Like they're sex workers, or like they're not kind of doing the traditional like manual labor, or are involved, are like very attached to their communities. It's not like somebody from like a big NGO or like an. To be honest, like charity, I think all around the world, it ends up being so moralistic, and it ends up kind of competing on this scale of deservability, like who deserves it more. Like, is this person out of a job and only then are we going to help them? But like, dude, like Corona is going to, you can get it whoever you are. It's not going to ask you if you had a job and then spare you, right? Unfortunately, our systems work that way. So we just we ended up doing that, and we're hoping to do more. So we are going to have a phase 2 of the drive, and hopefully raise some more money. And people are welcome to donate. I feel no shame asking for that, because we need all the money that we can get, because there are so many people to help. And when we went out to kind of distribute those like packages, we did it like door to door, because we didn't want to increase the sort of risk of exposure and like increase the spread. We had a very small team, but anywhere we went, right, like people were just kind of gather around us, asking for food as well, because they also needed it, and it was really heartbreaking to have to turn them away and to realize the state of things as we see them right now.
I mean, I'm just blown away in so many ways. And no, seriously, I mean, I think just like reiterating the fact that there's so many amazing things that you've just said, but one great thing is that I think recognizing that bigger NGOs and bigger organizations sometimes really don't know what the situation is on the ground, and they don't really care either. I think for them, a lot of the time, it's about the bottom line. It's about like taking some nice pictures and like showing that they're doing something, and they don't really actually even ask what the people need. And I think like having someone in your team who's kind of doing the needs assessment as you're going along, and you yourself are doing that process of like asking organizations like, this is what we need, and this is, and then you like sort of change your strategy of like diverting more money or asking for more money for that organization. I think it's really, really smart and a really responsible way of doing what you're doing. And then I think added on top of that, what you talked about with the trans community, I think in general right now, I think this whole thing, even as it was starting, a lot of people were having this romantic notion of, oh, we're all going through this together and we're all in this together. And it's coronavirus is a unifying thing that we're all experiencing. In a way, yes, but I think we know the reality that it is not at all the same for everyone. How do you see that reflected in Pakistan right now? Like that notion that it is not the same for everyone?
I think there's absolutely no kind of, illusion that we're all in the same boat. And I think a lot of people, the reason that they're, getting out of their homes, risking themselves to exposure, like you said, you're seeing it a lot on your timelines. People are collecting money and doing these ration drives because we realize who the most vulnerable are. But I do think that in a sense, like I'm just thinking, this is something that a trans activist mentioned when we also did a live session. She said that, if a transgender person was to contract the virus and go to the hospital, right, like how would they be treated? Are people going to suddenly abandon all their prejudices and abandon all their sort of taboos and just, kind of react to the situation in a moment? No. And I think we're still seeing that even within kind of, I think even within certain communities, we do see a certain classism of who is going to increase the spread. And funnily enough, it's going to be rich people, or it was rich people initially, who were traveling back and forth. And now it's kind of, it's been transferred to the bottom. I live in a gated military community in defense in Lahore, right? And what they're doing is, like, after, I think, 6, 7, 8 p.m., you can't they don't let people who are non-DHA residents enter. And in the mornings, like, a lot of, like, workers who wanted to come to the houses that they work in for, like, money or to ask for help, they weren't let in. They had to call, like, their employers and get permission to enter because they were basically seen as like carrying the virus for some reason. So we see a lot of that, like, how class is still, operating, how sort of gender taboos and professional taboos of, like, what is a respectful profession versus what's not. Like, we're still seeing that operating even, like, across the world, and it's quite sad. Yes, people are, their generosity is tenfold at the moment, but we also have to, take the bad with the good and constantly be critical of what's happening and how we can improve it. And I definitely think that we need to have better conversations across, like, along class lines, and think more about how, it's not just about handing them food and to feed them and be like, oh, stay away from us because you are the virus. Like, that's basically what we're saying to them. And I don't think our police helps with that, right? Like, they are the sort of enforcers. They are the first kind of responders to kind of embedding that and performing that classism. So it's really sad. And definitely I don't think we're in this together, but some of us are way, way better off. If you kind of go to my profile and see some of the posts that I've posted about other activists who are doing work in different parts of the country, like, let's talk about Balochistan, right? It has a lower population, but it's very underdeveloped. It's underserved by the government, federal government, also by the provincial government. But it has very high rates of poverty. 70% of people in Balochistan live under the poverty line. And when it comes to the government fund that we're going to get, government relief, the SOS program, which people can register to and get money to, it's not for everybody, right? It's like geographically distributed. So Balochistan has high rates of poverty, but it's going to get less of those funds just because they want to distribute it equally, which is so mind-blowing to me. And like 2 days ago, we also heard that they didn't want individual people to keep doing sort of the distribution work because they didn't want to overlap. So they were like, this is how you can come help us. But everybody that I've spoken to, like, they understand that the government, their net is not going to catch everyone, and that their net is very specifically built for a very certain and specific kind of poverty that is not going to kind of want to cater to more sort of marginalized, isolated communities. That I think now our goal is to try to focus more on them and see like who is not in the sight of the state at the moment.
I think what's fascinating is that we're seeing the same exact thing happen in the U.S., like in the way that
For sure.
The $2 billion stimulus package that was announced, it conveniently doesn't help immigrants or doesn't help people who have tax IDs, but they don't have social security numbers, or they are not, like even though people are paying their taxes and they're actually like working in the economy, they're not going to get the $1,000 check or whatever it is. I mean, it's just all these ways that I think these markers of class and markers of race and discrimination that already existed, I think, have been amplified. And at the same time, even in the ways that the governments are going about helping these people, it's not at all equal. So I think that
another funny. Sorry, I interrupted. What you were saying.
Go ahead.
Another funny thing that comes to my mind, I mean, obviously it's not funny, it's horrifying, and it really just drives me mad. I just want to bang my head on the wall all hours of the day, is that like the lockdown in at least in Punjab or in Lahore, like it's so arbitrary. Like they've shut down things where like all the big businesses are operating. And, they're all doing home deliveries, which rely on sort of low-income workers to do the labor and to risk themselves to exposure. Factories somehow got permission from the government because they wanted to complete their export orders, which I'm not sure who's going to be buying in the stores. But, like they're making all these workers come, like, like a factory full of like 2,000 workers coming in every day, interacting with each other. Like, even if you put them in a hazmat suit, right? Like, there's a reason that the WHO, the CDC, like every sort of health professional on the planet right now is telling people to stay at home. But the government is not enabling that culture that people can say no, right? Like, if a person wants to stay at home, they can't because they have to go to work. Otherwise, they're going to get fired, and they're going to be told that other people are coming in. So it's really just unfortunate that smaller businesses are like shut down and they're unable to operate. But the people at the top, the state log, they're able to get all these special permits, and they're still relying on labor that comes from low-income, more vulnerable communities. And it's just it's going to get worse, and this is going to be the cause of it, that the government was unable and unwilling, I would say, to protect the very people who are the most vulnerable. So it just made me think of your the kind of what you were saying about what's happening in the US as well.
And I mean, thank you so much for sharing that, because I feel like I didn't really know that before. I think in that particular way that people who are running factories or running big businesses, they're still sort of forcing people to come and work for them. And like you said, I think like constant critical thinking is crucial, and it's really, really like something that in a weird way, I feel like I wouldn't be able to think the way I do if I hadn't been in the US. And I think sometimes there's some resistance from people in Pakistan when they, hear me talking and they're like, oh, like you're an American agent, or you're like working for the CIA, or you're, a spy or whatever. And I think it's very easy to dismiss activism and dismiss, especially when it comes to feminism, I think ideas that are just about social justice and they're about equality, but people dismiss them as Western ideas. Has that been an issue for you? Like, have people tried to dismiss what you're doing?
I don't think so, because to be very honest, we're not going in with a very radical agenda. Like, even when we were kind of collecting money for the transgender drive, we obviously weren't specifying occupations, and in general in Pakistan, like, the transgender community is still kind of sort of like, they're deserving of charity, but if you talk about like the rest of the equation, the LGBTQ, people are going to shut you down immediately. So there are certain decisions that we kind of also strategically make, and so far, like, I was worried that some of the kind of places that we were donating to people might have a problem with, say sending money to like Balochistan, because they have all these like racist views about people who live there, and so far, I just thought that I kind of had to hold my ground. Like, I wasn't going to take all these notions in consideration, that somebody's not going to donate because I have X person on my list. Like, that just wasn't part. I mean, obviously, I thought about it, but it was just something that I wasn't going to acknowledge. But I think in general, people are really, I think everybody realizes how hard it is for them, and if it's hard for people who are safe in a home, they can, I think, imagine. Because we're so used to seeing this, like, we know, everybody knows. We may not be reminded of it as we are, like, say in like these days, but we all know that Pakistan does have very high rates of inequality and poverty, and I didn't mention this before, but like, even something so specific that you would never probably think of in your day life is like fishermen communities in Sindh, right? Like, they can't go out on sea, even though, like, I think even if they go alone. So it's not just that their source of income is slashed, it's also that their source of food is being slashed, because they can't even fish for themselves. So it's just like very sort of intricate, and everything is just kind of like muddled together into this like huge mess. So I think people are just focusing on getting the help to the right places. Obviously, like, they don't recognize sort of the more subtle things of sort of, say, classism, like I was mentioning to you. Like, say, some people will be like, are you sure that this money is going to a deserving person? And in my head, I think, I'm like, everybody around you is deserving. Like, everybody's in need right now, except maybe, say, the 2-3%, right? So it was because they don't have any jobs, so there is no way they can put food on the table unless they have savings. So things like that, which because we also have a mistrust of poor people, that they're somehow, that's what I saw in general, I guess, like, that they're maybe like cheating us, or don't really need it, or stealing from another needy person's mouth, which is just crazy. Like, if anybody's stealing from anybody, it's probably us. Like, why don't you share your wealth if you're so worried about the one sort of other needy family not being fed? So it's things like that, which, like, again, are just kind of carrying into the pandemic environment. It's not new. None of it is new. So that's kind of what sort of I've been seeing, I guess.
I mean, I just want to appreciate, I think, your sense of clarity and your sense of, like, as you're going through it.
You're so nice.
Honestly, I mean, I honestly wish we could just have like a regular talk show where you just talk about things
Please.
in Pakistan.
That would be you any day.
No, seriously, like, I think there's just, especially as a woman and what you're doing, I think, like, Pakistan is also really, in my opinion, kind of weird, where women are most of the time not really allowed to speak up. But then sometimes it's kind of easier for women to do certain things in a way, like like, it's kind of like weird sexism in its own way, where you can, like, since you're the woman, you can build community, and you can, like, but, like, still you can't go out and, like, talk to men and talk to, like, people. It's just, like, I think just the fact that you're able to do what you're doing and have that resolution and have, like, a sense of, okay, these are the issues, and the issues keep getting more complex and things just keep getting more intricate. But you're not sort of, like, backing down from, okay, we need to help the people that need the help the most. Seriously, no, I mean, like, I'm really, I'm amazed. And
no, you're too kind. You're too kind. I think it's probably the least that I can do at this point. Every day I'm like, I wake up and I think, how can we make this, like, bigger? And right now we're working with this sort of student at Harvard got in touch with me. She's done a lot of sort of grassroots work in Pakistan, and hopefully we'll be sharing that information soon. And we're trying to like come up with like a U.S. network to raise money to use in Pakistan. But now it's getting more complicated because the government is, trying to cover everybody. They're very hopeful about it. They've never done it before, but somehow this time they're just going to get it right. So I think it's going to be a little bit hard for independent organizers to get the help where it's needed as well. But we're definitely going to try. And you were totally right about like sort of like what the kind of gender aspect of this is, because let's be honest, now that everybody's at home, women, they're like domestic labor, they're all kinds of labor is triple fold now. And, there are higher rates of domestic abuse, and there's so many gendered issues currently that in Pakistan, I feel are probably even more magnified just because of the state of things. And funnily enough, like a lot of the sort of organizers that I'm kind of sending funds to are also women. So they're trans women, they're young women, and it's really incredible to see. And I wasn't being, maybe it was some like subconscious bias, but I wasn't like trying to very methodically only collect the women who were doing the work. But we see that like women are the ones who are doing the necessary work that's needed, and are trying to again risking themselves to exposure, and I'm sure because for women to do anything in Pakistan, it's 10 times harder. You have to have all these conversations with stakeholders in your family. Like even for me, when we were going out for the trans drive, my mom was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I had to take my brother because he drove the car, which was nice of him. But it was still, I kind of knew even before I knew that conversation was not going to be worth it. And I knew what kind of how I had to sort of balance family and the other work, and that the work couldn't come before that. And my parents are, well, at least they like to think that they're really progressive and kind of let me do things. And they do, it's true. But, it's still it's definitely still like a patriarchal bargain that you have to make it every step of the way. And I definitely think it's probably the same for a lot of the other women. And it's something that we don't talk about often. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Because it's not all just, fun and games, and it's all not just like a rainbow picture where we're like these like strong super women. It comes with its costs, and it comes with its bargains.
I think you were cutting a little bit, but you're back. I'm just constantly in awe of, I think, women. And one of my really good friends once said something that really has stuck with me, which is that I think I called her strong once, and she was like, "I don't really have a choice." I think especially Pakistani women, most of the time they don't have a choice but to be strong. It's just a lot of labor that Pakistani women are constantly doing to just be and just do what they want to do, and they have to do it with strength and grace. And so I love this conversation. I feel like we've covered so many things, and I probably think we should close it out for now. But would you like to share, how can people donate? How can they contribute? Where can you be found if people want to reach out to you?
Yes, I would love to do that. So you can go on my Instagram profile here at Shasha Zon, ZON, and you can look at my highlights. We have a specific one for COVID-19. You can look at all the organizations that we're trying to help and the work we're doing. All the payment details are on there, but I can go over them really quickly. We're taking Venmo. It's just Zunera-Shah. You probably have trouble with spelling, so look at the highlights, and then Zelle, we're taking Zelle, and it takes 2 seconds to transfer money that way. You can even transfer $1, which I think is amazing. I don't think in Lahore you can do that. You can't just transfer like 100 rupees. I don't know, maybe you can, but they tax you or something. And we're also taking PayPal, so people who are not in the US but sprinkled across the world who will maybe watch this, you can also contribute. And any little as like whatever your currency is, any little counts, and it does make a huge difference. Like we're at like $6,000, and hopefully we're going to go more, and we're going to try to help sort of more marginalized, isolated communities, like sex worker communities, like homeless communities, people who might not be eligible for government help or might not sort of be in the purview of other people, grassroots workers right now, because they are so isolated and kind of it's hard to reach out to people as well right now. So please donate, and thank you so much, Moise, for chatting with me. It's always super fun chatting with you. I wish we did this more.
I honestly,
and,
we should totally, I think, when you have time. I would love to chat again and see how the work is going, and just honestly, I feel like I love to rant about power structures and oppression, and
yes, me too.
I feel like not a lot of people are doing that in Pakistan still, and using Instagram Live or just like going online, and so maybe
I think it's definitely growing, and I think something like this, I hate sort of like romanticizing what we're going through as like a global community right now, but I think it really is visibilizing so much of the things that otherwise stay hidden. It's not that people are trying to go out of their way to look at them. It's just that it's in their face and you can't ignore it. And that makes us uncomfortable, but then also, that discomfort will probably take us somewhere. So I really hope that happens. I guess, yeah.
And it comes with naming things and calling things out as they are. So thank you so much for doing that. Really important work. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to share out the video with you as well if you want to post it yourself, because I feel like you talk about everything that you're doing in such great detail. And I'll probably post it on my social medias as well, along with all the donation information. And
thank you so much.
I know it's like 3 a.m., so thank you once again for joining us.
Of course. My pleasure. Please stay safe. Everybody who's watching this, please stay safe. And your friend Vanessa is really sweet. I just feel like I should say that because I've been reading her comments and I'm just like smiling at the worst times. But thank you so much for your kindness. I just thought it was nice.
Vanessa,
I had to say that.
She's an incredible human being. She's one of the lead trainers and facilitators actually with AMP, and she's one hell of a person.
Wow. It seems that way. I'm glad they have someone like her.